Hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Bimal Master. I'm the Chief Mentor for IMS in Mumbai. And I welcome you to this special webinar titled An Introduction to Equity Research. This webinar is part of an initiative by IMS called Management Masterclass, a sneak peek into the management pedagogy. This initiative is a result of our constant endeavor to impart and enhance our students' knowledge. So we've conceptualized these sessions so that students get a first-hand experience in B School pedagogy by expert faculty members on different subjects being offered in an MBA course. It's akin to attending an introductory B School session on that given topic. It'll help students to get the gist of important subjects and be equipped in making better selections for their MBA courses. So coming to our topic for today, we're going to talk about equity research. So what is equity research? Equity research is, broadly speaking, is the study of a business and its environment in order to make a buy or sell decision about investing in its shares, right? Equity research primarily involves analyzing the company's financials, performing ratio analysis, forecasting the financials in Excel using financial modeling techniques, and exploring scenarios with the objective of making a recommendation to buy, hold, or sell a particular stock. So to put it in very simple terms, right, equity research analysts work for both the buy side and the sell side firms in the securities industry. Um, so the key takeaways from today's session will be, economic analysis, market analysis, industry analysis, company analysis, and equity valuation methods. So to throw more light on this exciting subject and to present his perspective on the topic, I'm pleased to invite Professor Dr. Jasbir Singh Matharu, the Associate Professor of Finance at IMT in Nagpur. Dr. Jasbir has an experience of around 20 years in academics and around 5 years in the industry. He has done his PhD from the IIFT, that is Indian Institute of Foreign Trade in New Delhi. He also has an MBA from Griffith University in Australia and has completed his Masters of Commerce from the University of Calcutta. He currently teaches courses such as investment management, financial modeling using Excel, and corporate finance. And his areas of research include efficiency of markets, event studies, and sustainable investing. So without any further ado, Dr. Jasbir, may I now request you to address our listeners.
Thank you, Mr. Bimal, for the kind introduction. Let's start the topic for today. I am Jasbir Singh Matharu, as Mr. Bimal has already mentioned. I teach finance at IMT Nagpur and been in IMT Nagpur for the last 11 years. Right, so we teach this course. Actually, equity research is a separate elective course at IMT Nagpur to kind of give you, whenever you are doing your finance specializations, this will be one of the courses that you'll be getting as a choice, right? So there are, of course, other courses like investment management and financial modeling and fixed income, investments. So there are plethora of courses that you can have. This is one of them, and probably just to get an idea as to what is equity research about and what are the key components that we have of equity research, so that can help us to at least get started. Because see, obviously, this is, as we say, this could be an entire course in itself. So it's kind of, and we can go endlessly on this. Okay. So when we talk about equity research, I think Mr. Bimal already mentioned a few things already about what is equity research. So it is actually that only that he talked about is about analyzing a company that you want to invest in. As simple as that. So whatever information you have about a company and its surroundings. So he used a word actually called the environment. Yes, so that's very, very important. So one is about what the company is doing and how is it doing in that environment, and whether it is going to ultimately progress, grow, right? That is the key that you have to look at when you're doing equity research, that growth. And then, so if you really want to kind of put this into kind of a single line kind of a thing as to what should look for, is basically understand the business, right? So it's very important for you to understand. So whatever research that you're doing on a company, so what we are talking about here is so everybody wants to invest in a company, right? The stock markets is like booming, and at this moment, everybody's excited. Last 2 years, a lot of new investors have started investing in stocks. Many of you would be investing in stocks. So the point is, how do you start off understanding whether it's a right company to invest in or not, right? So there are some, you could call it a checklist or at least a process that we want to have an understanding of, that, okay, if we follow this process, at least we are on the right track. Because many a times you would invest in stocks based on tips. Somebody told you, so you invested. You got an information about a company. Okay, it's doing great, or maybe everybody's wanting to invest in a particular IPO. Like, everybody jumped onto the IPOs of like companies like Paytm and Zomato and Nika, because these are popular companies. But there could be other companies that people are not investing in, right? And maybe is it that everybody's jumping onto the investments on these companies because others are doing it? This is also, there's a term we use called herd mentality. So these are the things, of course, the nitty-gritty is whatever we can discuss on the basis of the discussion that we can have, because there is so much to talk about, right? So when we're talking about equity research, if you wanted to get a bit of detailed information about, or analyze it in a bit detailed way, you're talking about a lot of things here. You're talking about understanding a company's financials. When you say company's financials, we're talking about understanding its balance sheet, its profit and loss statements, doing some ratio analysis. A lot of people who are who've done commerce or done BBA at least would be aware of all these concepts. So you would have tried to understand a bit more about the company. So looking into the balance sheet and profit and loss statements and understanding those terms will become a very important factor in understanding what is equity research, right? So once you understand them, those numbers, those terms that they're talking about, then only you can actually look at different scenarios and you talk about the future growth of it. Only when you understand those terms, right, coupled with a very strong understanding of the company, the business that the company is doing. That, I think I'll keep on repeating again and again. So once you understand the company, their business, and then of course the profit and loss statement, balance sheet, etc., you will get a good understanding of what the company is doing and whether this company has got a sound business model, whether it's then you'll be able to understand it is going to grow or not, and how fast it is going to grow. Is it already in a stage where growth is not possible? It's in a stage where it's already kind of plateaued. The growth will not happen, or there's going to be a decline in that company's financials. So those things you'll understand when you have an understanding of different terms associated with the profit and loss and balance sheet. Okay. So ultimately, it's about making a stock investment recommendation. When you say a stock investment recommendation, you typically say either buy or sell, right? That means, or to make it very easy, first of all, to start off with, whether to buy or not to buy. Because you don't have an investment, so whether I should make this investment or not make this investment. So there is an IPO coming up recent. So you look at the company and figure out, okay, let me make this investment because I think there's going to be a growth, good growth in this company, and you decide to invest. Other is, okay, back out, don't have to put in any money. And if you go a bit further, once you have invested, then whether you should hold on to your investment or take out the money. Okay, so that's why when you do your equity research, it is not a one-time activity. Maybe every 3 months, every 6 months, you have to try to figure out what changes happened in the company that has warranted a relook into the growth of the company or the future of the company. Okay, and once this and who are doing this equity research, there are some, we call them analysts. So they put all their ideas into an equity research report. Okay, if time permits, I'll show you one sample, right? As to how do they write their report, right? And what are the things that they go into their report. We'll also have a look at that. So now the point is how to conduct equity research. So there are various approaches. So one is called the top-down approach, right? And the other is called the bottom-up approach. Of course, that's just the other way around. Now, the top-down approach is a bit more scientific and time-consuming, I must add, right? Where you look at basically uh, three aspects. No, and so this is it is called an EIC approach, or a three-level approach. There are various names people give it. So basically, we are talking about trying to understand the, first of all, economy of the place. I mean, wherever you are investing. Let's say we are talking about India now. What do you think is going to be the possibility of growth in the economy coming 2 years, 3 years? Is the economy looking good? So if the economy is looking good from various angles, we'll discuss those few points on which basis you can decide. Once you have done that, now you think that, okay, great, India is a great place to invest. And this is also from the perspective of a foreigner, right? Who says, okay, I want to, I have a investor in USA says, okay, I have money to invest, I'm looking at maybe Asian nations to invest in. So whether it is, could be India, could be, Sri Lanka, could be Bangladesh, or many other countries that he's deciding. So understanding and comparing the economies of different countries would become more important. If you are sitting in India and wanting to understand Indian economy, it's easy, of course. And also you don't have, you're not looking at maybe international diversification at this moment, right? So as a country, what are you looking at? Its growth prospects is really good. Fine. We think that economy is already on the growth track. I mean, we have a kind of uh, understood. We are dealing with the pandemic. We have understood how to deal with it now. Things are opening up. All bits and pieces of the economy are opening up. Whatever was suppressed till this point of time, things are coming out now. People have started opening up their businesses, and things are getting on track. Okay, these minor disruptions that we're having now, okay, fine, will also go away very soon. So once you decided that economy is doing well, the next step is which industry would you want to invest in? So this top-down approach is a bit, so that's why time consuming. So now you're looking at in the economy, you have maybe, are you looking at automobile sector? Or are you looking at IT sector? Are you looking at the infrastructure? Right? Are you looking at the financial sector? Now you have to figure out which ones. So overall, most of the industries would grow if the economy is growing. Some may be a bit slow. So figure out which ones are the ones that are going to grow much faster than the others. So there is what your focus has to be on. Now then, understanding different businesses become quite important. So that's a huge job, in fact. So if you're doing a top-down approach, figuring out which industries are going to perform well, it's a major task. Okay. Now, once you figured out, look, okay, I guess you figured out with a lot of thought that okay, IT, industry is going to be really booming in the coming few years because a lot of new technology and new concepts have come up. People are online, and for various reasons, you can see today we are online. So all these kind of new approaches towards even communication are facilitated by the IT sector, and you decide, okay, yes, IT sector is a great sector to invest in. Then which company should you invest in? Once you decided, okay, this sector looks good, maybe 2-3 sectors look good, so pick up one sector now and say, okay, fine, In this sector, I have various companies. I have TCS, I have Infosys, I have Wipro, and many other names. Which company should I put my money in? Because the IT sector is going to do well. So in the IT sector, which are the companies which look better than the others? Right? So it becomes kind of a comparative analysis also. Right? So this is what is called a top-down approach. Start with the economy, then go to the industry, and then go to the company. And there is because this is time consuming, and a lot of people say, look, this is can we have another way about it? So yes, there is a way about it. And what is that? We say, fine, there is a bottom-up approach. Now, in the bottom-up approach, what do we do? Let's see if I can write. Yeah. So in the bottom-up approach, what happens? You focus more on the company, less on the industry, less on the economy. You say, I have figured out a great company. Let's say you say, fine, I think Pidilite is a great company to invest in, which, Fevicol is one of the brands, or Asian Paints is a great name. So it's a great company to invest in. So you figured out company without going through that EIC analysis. So many investors, or many equity research analysts would probably do a bottom-up kind of an approach they will take, because it is a bit faster. And also, you can have good companies. What did we do here is we filtered from when we're going from economy to the industry. We said, okay, there are only 3 sectors we think they're doing great. What happens there is we might miss out on companies which probably are in a sector which is not so attractive at this moment, but that the company is great. So there could be 2-3 companies in a particular sector, and one of them would be a great investment. Probably it's a market leader in that particular sector. So it becomes, so that way, a bottom-up approach also has its own merits. Even though the EIC approach is very scientific, a bottom-up approach may actually be a bit faster in its process, right? And you may end up, selecting a lot of companies even from sectors which are not doing so well, right? So let's look at few things about the economy. What are the things that typically you would try to figure out when you want to understand the economy? Okay. Some very basic things. So as such, what we're going to discuss is nothing that you may not be aware. It is just that you have to train your mind into thinking like that. Okay. We all talk about the GDP, right? Is our GDP going to grow, right? At what rate? We're looking at a 9% growth rate, right? Or a 6% growth rate, somebody will say. So there'll be different opinions, right? So maybe on an average, you can figure out, okay, at least 7 to 8% growth. So as a country, we probably one of the fastest growing economies now in the coming few years. So as an economy, we're going to be doing probably very, very well, right? With a lot of initiatives by the government, right? Things are looking bright. We must also have an idea about fiscal policies, right? Budget is like one of the, we're going to have this budget soon. So one of the very important activities, that help us to understand what the government is thinking, what are its policies towards various industries. So a lot of things will be announced in that budget. So that becomes a very important, discussion point or learning point. So understanding what probably might be promoted more and what might be promoted less. Some new schemes might come up, and you will then figure out, okay, this particular scheme. So government says, okay, we're going to promote infrastructure. Like it'll be a lot more emphasis on infrastructure than anything else. So once you know that, now you got a sector to invest in, infrastructure sector. So there are various kinds of companies under that, right? So who's going to benefit? Maybe you think, okay, so there are a lot of companies in that sector directly, which are maybe going to benefit, like maybe looking at companies which are in the logistics, because if the roads are going to be well planned and well made, maybe logistics would be a great sector. So these are ideas that are coming from one announcement that has been made by the government, right? So if infrastructure has to be created, you require cement and steel. So maybe those are the two sectors that you have to look into. So ideas can come from anywhere. So we are just looking at economy analysis, but then this itself, each of the things that can also help you. Monetary policies, like by the government, they kind of try to control the money supply in the economy, and so they have. So you also have to have an understanding of things like the repo rates, and what do the interest rates, how do they matter to us, and when the government announces an increase in interest rates, why have they done so, right? What is their objective behind it, right? So all those things will help us understand the process and its implication on business. Okay? If savings is high with the Indians, and obviously that lead to more possibility of investments, and you'll find probably a lot of money coming to the stock markets probably, okay, because now a lot of people are interested, right? So where would the money go? So of course there are other options available. You have typical fixed deposits, to public provident fund accounts, to various other I mean into many, some people even invest in life insurance policies. And so there are various kinds of people. Some people say, okay, gold is a great investment. Some people do investment in real estate. It's fine. So there are lots of investment avenues available, but stock market is one of the strongest ones. And when we know that if you compare returns across various investment avenues, stocks by far have given the highest returns on an average over a long time. If you take up, like, say, 25 years, 30 years time period, if you take, right, stock markets would have given on an average 15 to 17% return per year. And as compared to, probably, if you're talking about real estate, could be on an average 10%. Gold could be 8 to 9%, right? So it is definitely able to it has a draw, because the returns are, of course, risk is high, but the returns are also quite high. In India, an understanding of the agriculture, because we are ultimately still an agrarian economy. Apart from service sector taking up quite a bit, the GDP's share, still you have to understand, if you understand agriculture, and if you understand what monsoons, in stock markets, monsoons play an important role. If monsoons are going to do well, so if there is a good production of crops, leads to a lot of income to the farmers, so that the rural sector, the demand is going to be strong, and there are some products that are specifically selling in those markets, right? So if the monsoon is not good, so vice versa, you'll figure out some companies may not do well, because there will be no demand for those products, right? In the rural market. And rural market is a big market, right? So you have to understand which companies are going to get benefited if monsoon is good, if crops are good. That will lead to more thought about which companies to invest in. Okay. Then inflation. If inflation is going to be high, it is going to eat away your returns, right? So you have to understand that any investment that you make has to beat inflation. So if inflation is about 7-8% and you are earning about 7-8%, it makes no sense. You have to be much higher than inflation. Okay. So that's one side of it. But coming from investment perspective, like in stocks, how does inflation matter to you as an equity research analyst? If inflation is there and there is continuous prices rising, you will find businesses struggling because their input prices will go up. Costs will go up for the companies. If the costs go up, profits will come down. So are you looking at this particular inflation, or there is certain kind of maybe products having higher inflation than the others? So wherever the inflation is going to be high, those companies which kind of use those inputs are going to be probably having lower profitability. Okay, so you have to think like that. Interest rates, if they go up, if interest rates, I mean, we are at this moment in a situation where we are looking at maybe interest rates are going to go up in the future. That is the kind of scenario at this moment. Definitely not going to drop. If interest rates are going to go up, it is going to directly affect the companies which are taking loans. Right? So if the company has planned to take loans, because ultimately there are only two ways that you can finance your, typically, the two ways, either you borrow or it's your own money. When it's your own money, of course, it's shareholders' money. But then ultimately, if the company is borrowing and interest rates are rising, that is putting pressure on the company. Costs will go up. If the interest costs go up, profitability will be hit. So when you do the economy analysis is fine. Once you've understood that, but general understanding about the stock market is also very important. Right. So at this moment, one of the key things that probably you would notice many times it is reported in the press, market is valued at, let's say, 25 times P ratio. So P ratio is the price to earnings ratio of the company as well as it could be the market. So if it's let's say the Nifty, which is the index, right, of the National Stock Exchange, we are saying it is 25 times the earnings. Is it really telling you a story? It's very difficult, right, to tell that, because ultimately on an average, let's say the market has been about 19 to 20 P ratio. So you have to have an understanding of that also. So the terms are I'm not trying to just simply introduce some new terms here, but then these terms you have to be aware of. So you have to understand, okay, fine, I may look at it from the perspective of a price to earnings ratio. Now, at the moment, it might seem a bit overvalued, but all things are taken care of if there is growth that you're looking at in the market. So if you're looking at companies going to grow, even with a high P ratio, there is still a lot of way for the market to go up. Okay. And then somebody talked about the sentiment. General sentiment, if it is generally good, right? People are wanting to invest, people are looking up to the markets, people are looking up to companies performing. And where does the sentiment come from? I mean, of course, from the environment. And that helps you. And that gives you a push as to, yes, it seems like things are working, right? Again, certainly there could be a change in sentiment, but it's a dangerous word. But then that gives you a sense of things going right or wrong. You get that idea. Okay. And even a lot of foreigners, I mean, I put up a point here just to highlight that fact that even foreigners investing in Indian markets, let's say, will add a lot of value, because one is that they bring in a lot of expertise, and second is they bring a lot of money. So, and that's why they can push up the market or sometimes drive on the market when they sell. So when they put in a lot of money, markets would go up. So there you have to also understand that as a separate. So Indian markets, we do focus on how the foreigners have been investing in India, right? Okay, let me now have just to give you a brief idea about the industry analysis. Okay, so there are a lot of small tools and techniques that we use, a life cycle analysis, whether a particular industry, where is it at this moment in its life cycle? So let's talk about a solar industry. Okay, maybe it's the companies that are into the solar industry are at the beginning stage only, because still we are still trying to understand. People are still trying to adopt this new way of energy. So how it's going to pan out, still not very sure. So which companies under the solar industry would you invest in? It becomes a bit difficult, because at this stage there will be a lot of players who would ultimately become big, and some will completely disappear. So which stage of the life cycle is your industry in is also going to be very important. Okay. Then similarly, some industries are cyclical. They go up and down. You'll find a span of 3-4 years. They have a boom and then they go down. Again, they have a boom. Again, they go down. So you have to understand industry from that perspective also. Okay. How strong is the competition in this industry? So if the competition is very strong, automatically there'll be a lot of pressure on the profitability. So you have to understand the extent of competition in the industry, and what kind of policies are there that are affecting that particular industry. You have to be aware of them. Okay. Down to the company analysis. So when you're looking at company analysis, so it's very important to understand how the company has performed in the past, like last 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. That gives you a good understanding of the business. A company has, of course, will go through ups and downs. Was it a steady player all the time? Was your company a leader in the industry, and so it has been always done well? So that gives you an idea about the company. And finally, I mean, the most important thing, probably the most important thing I would suggest is the future prospects. So everybody is trying to work hard to understand the future prospects. Okay. And so it requires a huge amount of work. Okay. Now, this analysis can be done at 2 levels: qualitative and quantitative. Right. So when you say qualitative, you're looking at various things like strategies of the company. So how is your company that you chose surviving in the competition? What is it doing, right? That it is making it excel in this particular business or domain. What is the business model? Is it going to work? Is it working? Is the company making profits, or when will it start making profits? Okay. What is the management thinking? Right? Whatever management had said earlier, whatever it promises, does it do? Right? Who are the key people? What has been their background? Their experience. All will matter. So qualitative, that's why we cannot put them into numbers. That's why qualitative. And what is quantitative? Something that you can now put it down into numbers. And now you will do all those number crunching exercises like profit and loss statement, balance sheet. You pick up ratios, do a ratio analysis, do something called vertical analysis, and and then try to. So once you have, and so this will help you. And analyzing financial statements will help you a very good understanding about the business. Are there some things that were missing out? By looking at reading something about the company. Now, when I get into numbers, I understand it better, because it is now either matching what I have understood earlier, or is it going against what I had understood earlier? Numbers might be telling a different story. And finally, once I understood those numbers and I see growth prospects in the future, I can use that idea to forecast the statements. Once I can forecast the statements, I then have some techniques to use for valuation purposes. Okay. So my objective is to find out maybe not a particular number, at least we call that a value. So it's intrinsic value, the worth of the company. And there are, of course, various techniques that you can use. So once you got that intrinsic worth, and we'll see that in a few techniques, we'll see what are more common. Then, whatever your intrinsic worth, if it is more than the market price, you will buy. Otherwise, you will not buy. So that's the typical decision that you will be making. Okay. These are different techniques which are more common, right? So there are various kinds of techniques. So we divide them into maybe absolute models and relative models. Of this, in this, we call this DCF techniques. And in this, the free cash flow method is more prominent. This one is not so, right? So if you have to really focus upon doing a lot of in-depth research, I mean, financially, you have to forecast the financials and all, and you would want to make a very good model, then this free cash flow concept becomes very, very important. And but generally, the relative valuation techniques are used more because these are a bit simpler to understand and explain to anybody also. So very commonly used is a P ratio and EV to EBITDA. So if you really have to, of course, different techniques are used in different industry, and so that's okay. But so I'm just talking about now from a common perspective that okay, most of the times, right, people will tend to use a price to earnings ratio, this one, and enterprise value to EBITDA. These are more common relative valuation models. Now, what is going to be the difference here is, so here you are looking at doing the forecasting of cash flows. So when you say cash flows, in this case, of course, it's the free cash flows that we're talking about, and finding their present value. So that's the key of DCF analysis. It's called discounted cash flow technique. So when you say discounted, you are saying find their present value. Okay, so that's your DCF technique. And when you say relative valuation, you are saying, let me figure out this company. Let's say I'm trying to work on Asian Paints. So I have to figure out which are the companies who can be called the peers of this company, Asian Paints. So, of course, Berger Paints would be first on my mind to call it a peer. But then there are other companies, a smaller company like, let's say, a Shalimar Paint. Would that qualify to be called a peer so that I can use its idea to find out the valuation of Asian Paints? Probably not. So finding out peers and then figuring out, okay, so my company, how better is it from that company? Better than that company. So in what respects is it better? So shall I give a more valuation to my company than in comparison to the other company or a set of companies? So this models, again, more commonly, relative valuation models are used more. Absolute valuation models are a bit more difficult to practice. But then you have to be trained. Right? So once you, as an equity research analyst, this becomes a key component. So you have to learn both the kind of techniques, and these are the two typical techniques that are to be understood. Few things that you have to be aware when you're doing equity research is understanding of the annual report of the company. It's a very boring task, but it has to be done. So reading about companies through annual reports is going to become very, very important. So if you want to start off, do that. And there are some industry-specific sites. A lot of information is available about industries. Right? So every industry probably will have some place where they dump a lot of information. Okay, so that has to be done. News, of course, on a regular basis. And then probably there are some screeners available nowadays, right? So these are the filters, right? So there are some lot of websites that you can use to filter stocks based on your criteria. So you must have you have to figure out, okay, fine, I want companies like this. So those they are now easily available, freely available sites, so you can definitely make use of them. And finally, try to create a model in Excel that is ultimately going to help you. So if you create a good template in Excel, if you done it for one company, you can replicate easily for another company. So at least these are the things that I thought were important for you to understand equity research. So Bimal, I think that's probably good. Maybe we can stop here.
So guys, that brings us to the end of today's session. Thank you once again, Dr. Jasbir, for for a very illuminating session. I'm sure it's been of immense value to our students, right? So thanks for taking time out from your schedule and addressing our students.
Thank
right.
you. This is fine.
Right, guys. So that's all that we have for today. Thank you for joining us, and see you again next time. Right. Thank you.